Welcome to another podcast on Mother's War on Violence. We thank our listening audience for listening to 89.9 FM WCBU here in Peoria, Illinois. And today I'd like to start off with prayer before I introduce our special guests. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this precious time that we have together with our listening audience and with our special guests, and we ask that you would touch each and every family under the sound of my voice that may be struggling or going through anything, any obstacles in their life concerning violence or prevention or, trying to keep the family safe. And we ask that you would continue to help us as agencies to continue to work with one another to help strengthen our families in this area. In Christ's name we pray, amen. So today, thank you again, listening audience, for listening, and we're going to introduce Hedy Elliott, and she is with Moonlight
Coalition for Adult Learning.
Thank you, Hedy.
You bet.
You can go ahead and tell us a little bit about your organization and...
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Yolanda.
Great.
So Moonlight Coalition for Adult Learning, it has quite a history. Mm-hmm. When I started with Moonlight, it was actually Moonlight Basketball. And Moonlight Basketball was started in the 1990s. Brewers Distributing, George Jacob, Phil Lockwood, Junior Watkins, and Scott Meister, Steve Shostrom, put together a league, and the intent was to get young men off the streets between the hours that violence was happening and the kids were getting killed. So this league was 17 to 26, and it ran from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Down at the Old Y. And there was no spectators. They didn't want bringing anything from the streets inside, so there was no spectators, just the players. And any player who needed a GED, I wasn't the original teacher. Matt Abraham was the original teacher.
Okay.
And then he asked me to take it over as a volunteer gig, and I taught GED from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. in the morning.
Wow. For how many years? When did you start that?
Well, I started in the 90s and ended probably about 2010. I'm not really sure. So it was a long time. It was probably 15 years.
Okay.
It ran in the spring, and the league was in the spring, but it was just the most incredible idea, and it just shaped who I am today. I mean, the gentlemen who started the league, I mean, they had it down, and I wanted to continue the great work that they started. So
awesome.
when the league went away, the GED program was still really vibrant. So that's why we kept the name Moonlight. And Moonlight has to me, has a few meanings. Moonlight Basketball, of course, was the original thought. But, I get people of all ages moonlighting, working during the day and going to school at night, or going to school at night and going to classes during the day. So basically, my whole entire career, I've been teaching GED, so 26 years.
Awesome.
And when I started as a teacher, I started at the old Harrison School, third grade. So when I was younger and had no kids, I would teach third grade, and then I taught night classes at the county jail, and then on Thursday nights I was teaching Moonlight Basketball, crawling into work Friday morning after being up all night teaching GED and teaching third grade again. So basically, the way our program, it just kept growing and growing. And when I was teaching at the county jail, some people are just in the county jail for traffic or small offenses, and then they get out, and others are sentenced to prison. So many of the inmates, when they they could test in the county jail. So you only can test in a correctional facility or at the courthouse.
Okay.
So they would begin testing at the county jail, but then they would be released, and they just didn't know how to finish the test or where to go. And I went to nursery school at Proctor Center. I've been around Proctor Center my whole entire life, so everybody knew to call Proctor Center, and somehow they would find me. And so I just started tutoring for free as a volunteer, people getting out of the county jail. And I didn't want to take them to Harrison, around little kids. So I thought, well, I'll teach at night at Proctor Center. And then before you knew it, everywhere I went, people were saying, "Are you the lady who teaches GED?" I'm like, "I am, but how do you know?" And people were calling me, and it got to be dozens of people. And here I'm doing it just as a nice person. So I thought, this isn't sustainable, and I wanted to be realistic about it. Like, I cannot continue this kind of pace. And by then I had 2 children. I can't keep up that pace and be, helpful to people. So I went to the Park District and I said, "I've been volunteering in your facility for many, many years, but I think it's time that we go for a grant and really have a program."
A partnership program.
A program with funding. I mean, I can't,
Right.
my poor husband borrowing $50 every time somebody wanted to take their GED, that's not sustainable.
Right.
So I did. I went to the Park District. They fully agreed. So that was in about 2013. And so we've had a full-time program ever since. Hundreds of students coming through every year.
That's awesome.
Through Proctor and Logan.
I've seen that, and I've also watched the Facebook page.
Yes.
Just to see the multicultural variety of families that you've helped.
Right.
Male and female, different nationalities, and it seems to be very successful.
And it's a lot of fun. And the students are so inspirational. And so what I decided, and our late friend Bonnie Noble, you and I talked about Bonnie the other day. So I went to Bonnie because she was the head of the Park District at the time. And I said, I am a teacher. I'm a diehard teacher. I never wanted to be a principal. I never wanted to be an administrator. Right. I don't want to be anything else. I love being a teacher. And I don't want to be a full-time fundraiser. So in order to have this program, it was like I had to be the full-time fundraiser. And that took me away from my mission. And I didn't feel good about that. So we decided, I asked her if there was any opportunity to have a for-profit business that would support our not-for-profit, and that's how the airport gift shop got started. Bonnie allowed us to work with Gene Olson at the airport, fulfill a need that they had at the airport. They needed a gift shop after they remodeled, and so Gene was just, tremendous. Within the first few minutes, he said, "I'm all in." And
Great.
So that business has supported our not-for-profit. So when you shop at the Peoria Airport in the gift shop, Moonlight Coalition for Adult Learning, you are essentially paying for tutors and paying for the students to take their GED down at the courthouse and books and et cetera. So it's been an exciting ride, I tell you.
That is exciting. I'm excited that now that the laws have changed, that it's not just considered to be just a GED. It is now a high school diploma.
Yes,
right?
it is. It is, which is great because people. And Yolanda, you are a GED recipient.
Yes, I am.
And you and I had this discussion. The GED is difficult. It's not a basic competency test.
It's not.
And it deserves the title of high school diploma because it's a 7.5-hour test. It covers every subject area. And I think people think, "Oh, well, I'll go get my GED." Good luck with that. It's almost easier to finish high school.
It is.
So
I've even found so I got my GED, my high school diploma, well, GED. It's late in life. By then, I had already had 3 children, so I understand what it's like, especially today, right now, today. So in the 90s is when I got my GED, so I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine how much harder it is now to get it in today's world. And so that's why programs like the Moonlighting, I had to have you on here, Hedy, because these programs are essential to stopping violence.
Yes.
Education is freedom.
Right.
I mean, and like you and I were talking the other day, that even a little education is that it's a stepping stone to the next level.
Yes.
Each level of education that I've received, it was an extra stepping stone, and it paid off.
Yeah.
You know, as I went to go look for other places of employment and stuff like that. So it's very important for our kids' future and our parents, our young parents, and listening to the study that they had the other day at City Hall, looking at the dynamics through the board that they had down there. What is it called?
The racial equity.
And I just looking at how kids aren't ready for kindergarten, and just looking at the different numbers and of the different ethnics and where things are. It's like we can't afford to lose any of our programs to support the family.
Right. So, and you touch on something really important. That gets, I think that is something that's really lost in the conversation. Education. When we talk about the disparities, we talk about the income. Adult literacy is a very narrow field. Yes. And I'm proud to say I teach hundreds of students a year, but there are thousands, estimated 20,000 in Peoria County, 20,000 people who do not hold a GED or a high school diploma.
Wow.
And many of them have not finished 8th grade. And you think in 2023 people don't finish grade school, and it's far more common than any middle-class person would ever imagine.
Wow.
So when we're talking about violence, we're talking about curbing violence. Where is education in this conversation?
That's why I'm asking.
Yep.
It's very vital and important to the establishment of the family to move the kids forward. Right. So if the parents can't read or write, or and they only have an 8th grade level of education, so when we're asking the question, there's a study done even in Chicago that high schoolers, and I'm sure that studies here as well, with the similar results from our schools here, that the 11th and high schoolers aren't reading to their level of expectations.
Right. So if we back up, at one point in my career, I taught classes in both Taft and Harrison homes. And my idea has always been bring the school to the people. Don't expect a big turnout if you're all the way across the city with all kinds of barriers, transportation, money, childcare. So
without education, you're going to be low on everything else.
That's
you're right.
So when I taught in Taft and Harrison, the executive director at the time said, I really would you feel comfortable going door to door, with the PHA staff in both Taft and Harrison, and candidly ask people their education level? And people were very honest.
Wow.
And that was probably in 2010. And the results were that 60% of the residents didn't hold a high school diploma, and 40% of those 60 didn't even finish 8th grade. So, that's alarming. That's an epidemic. And what is so exciting to me about teaching adult literacy is you can change all of that, because we have more money than we could ever spend in the United States. I mean, we have gobs of money, and everybody demands more resources, more resources. Well, in education, it's not resources, because we have more than anybody in the world.
Right.
And some of these very poor countries run circles around our educational system. And why is that? Because there's value to education. And so to instill value, a lot of the adults that I teach, a great example. I taught a gentleman, actually I taught his sons in the county jail. They finished their GED, they got out, they're very productive citizens now.
Awesome.
But this person was retired, a retired contractor, and he said, you know what, if my sons can do it, I can do it. So at 70 years old, he finished his GED. Okay?
That is a success story for real.
But what that does is it models to his grandchildren the value of education, and that's what we need to do. We need to make education important. We need to value education. And just think, for all of the people in our community, Yolanda, the more education that everybody has, the better off all of us are, right?
Right.
The better off all of us are. It would mean people would be, able to move from unemployable to employable. They could move on to college. They could move on to trades. The family income would go up. They would be modeling the value of education to the younger ones, and hopefully the younger ones don't drop out. They keep going through. And that's kind of gets lost in the mix when we're talking about violence, And I once said in a talk, I was talking to a group of reentry folks, and I said, just think, you put down a gun and pick up a book, and your life would instantly be better.
Change, yeah.
It would instantly be better. There's a world out there. There's a whole world out there that you're missing, and put that down and pick up a book, and the world opens up to you.
That's that's the thing that I found coming out of the foster care system and learning that education was freedom.
Yeah.
That wasn't like somebody was trying to make me do it because of the truancy to stay in school. This was really for my own good.
Right.
To stay in school, to get an education for myself. And if I looked at those kids, I wanted them to have a better tomorrow than I did, then that meant I needed to set the example and do the groundwork today.
Right.
So when you're thinking about how it affects the family and violence, as a matter of fact, if a lot of kids were exposed to more parents like that, or just like the grandfather that you were talking about, and if it was good enough for his sons, he felt like it was good enough for him, even at age of 70. And what if we pushed that whole narrative and the kids joined in with us and seeing how important it is? It would stop all the killing because everybody started reading books. It would stop the having babies out of wedlock, because that's one of the issues that affect the family and violence, because sometimes people are doing things that they don't know anything what the end result is going to happen with their body, especially if you don't have that much education.
Right.
It's easy for you to get caught up and trapped in those different scenarios and situations, and we want the kids to succeed and to become more independent so that they can get better lives. Now, I've noticed since I've had my GED, I can't tell you that it's exactly all that easy, Hedy, but I can tell you I'm a way lot better off now than where I was when I started.
Right.
And the more I continue to build on what I have, by pursuing my education and stuff like that, the better off it will be.
And Yolanda, no one can take that away from you. You
Yep,
have
that
that credential. You're building on that credential. You and I have talked about your child development. So that original credential of holding the high school equivalency diploma has allowed you to open up a whole nother world. And You
This is
know,
true.
it's so imperative to our community
Yep.
to talk education, and you and I have talked that people have the misconception that adult education is teenage dropouts. Well,
Right.
my oldest student was 82 years old,
Yeah.
and God bless her for. She said she was a housekeeper in the South her whole entire life, and she didn't feel like she wanted to pursue her GED. She just wanted to be a better reader.
Wow.
And
something simple as that.
right.
Really?
And what a fabulous model she is to her grandchildren or her children, great-grandchildren. And that's what I like to emphasize. It's the value of education. It's not how many
That's right.
millions you spend on brand new
No.
textbooks. It's valuing education and passing that along. It's something that I like to call cultural transmission. You just keep passing down those traits,
Right.
those thoughts, those you know.
And now they've got computers now, so now it probably makes it even that much more easier, that much more funner to sit there and type out stuff on the computer. And now they're not doing cursive writing, so what are they doing now?
Well, I still teach cursive, but that's a story for another day. We won't talk about that.
Okay, thanks, Hedy. Well, I appreciate you coming on our show, and I still think in a lot of different ways, like you said, it's a lot of benefits. You can't go wrong with going back to get your education.
Right.
You just can't. All it can do is make you a better and a stronger person.
Absolutely.
For everything. We can read, now we can read, and so some things that we don't know in history, you know, being an African American, well, I don't always have to wait for it to be taught in my school. I can look it up because I can read now.
Yeah.
I read a lot much faster and better and at a quicker pace, and I understand critical thinking of reading.
Yeah.
And all that started with just getting a high school diploma or getting your GED, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can't emphasize enough how much it benefits the whole entire community. If you just think of one person who got off, you know, public aid and
That's
is
true.
paying taxes, I mean, that alone, I mean,
It's a blessing.
is over time, you know,
gonna-
tenfold.
It's going to help the whole economy.
Absolutely.
It's going to help us
It's
all.
economic development is
That's
what
right.
it is.
Yeah. What is that called again?
Economic development?
Yes, it's going to help all that because then you're talking about the social economic status. Is all that's going to raise up higher. They're going to want to go have better schools for their kids
Right.
because they're, as the parent, once you get the high school diploma, it's going to make you want to aim for a little bit higher.
Right.
I keep telling my kids that having a high school diploma is just the stepping stool to get started.
Right.
That's how you get started. You still
That's
have to
right.
continue on. And I know everybody isn't made for college material and stuff like that. But you know what? Even when you want to be a truck driver or if you want to do even a CNA or whatever you want to do, you still have to know how to read those things. And it's good to have your high school diploma because a lot of those simple trades require a high school education.
Right. And even for leisure, I mean, Miss Maddie, who is 82, I mean, what a great pastime to want to read and
Yes.
and to, you know, have the luxury, I call it a luxury of picking up any book and enjoying it. And, you know, I mean, it's fulfilling to your life. It you know, makes your life more interesting. And I just you can't go wrong with more education.
Right.
I mean, there's absolutely no one can convince me that less education would be better in any aspect.
And how did you become so passionate about all this? Because surely you're not the only teacher in your family, Hedy.
I'm not. My little brother, Mr. Elliott.
That's right.
Shout out, Brett.
That's right.
So he is. He was a long time District 150 teacher, principal. He was a
PE,
right,
sports
coach.
coach, yeah.
You name it. So he's now the superintendent up in Stark County. But
Okay, great.
I think, you know, Brett and I and my older brothers, our passion for Peoria, it came from my late father, Royce Elliott, who was a great ambassador to Peoria, and he loved the people, he loved the community, and, I'm just blessed to have two wonderful parents who raised us and loved everyone in Peoria and pushed. None of us, my brothers nor I, had... we didn't know it wasn't an option not to go to college. I mean, our parents, this is the way you do. And I thought, when I was a senior, when people were saying they weren't going to college, it's like, that's an option? My dad never told me that was an option. But that's what you want. We were blessed to have parents who valued education.
And I like the fact that if you want the power to change, to motivate, to do some things, and you're a big dreamer like me, education is the start to getting to that point. Yep. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hedy. Do you have anything you want to add before we conclude our session?
Sure. Well, I want to thank you, Yolanda, for all of the work that you do in the community, and to honor your late son. That is just wonderful.
Well, thank you.
And anyone in the listening audience, if you want to pursue your high school diploma, you can call either the Peoria Park District or Proctor Center, and they can give you the information. We run our program year-round, so we run it, we call open enrollment. So if you get out of prison yesterday and you want to start today, or you just so happen to wake up one day and say, I want to change my life, whatever it is, we want you to start when that spark when you get that spark. So we have both day and night classes. Everything is free. And if anybody is interested in volunteering to tutor or to donate to help support the program, that's through the Peoria Park District Foundation.
Awesome. Thank you, Hedy. I look forward to coming down and actually motivating and talking to some of the students there who think it's a hard time, because sometimes you might have a hard time in your own personal life, but it's worth every minute of it. Absolutely. And our graduation is April 18th at 6 p.m. at Proctor Center, and I would love for one of the graduates to be a guest on your show. Awesome. We can make that happen. All right. Thank you, Hedy, and thank our listening audience for listening to another podcast of Mother's War on Violence.